Love will find you when you least expect it. That's what Willow's grandmother whispered to her before she died. But when you're the blind, worthless Omega of the Crescent Moon Pack, you learn that love is a luxury reserved for those who can see their own worth. And Willow? She'd been told her entire life that she was worth absolutely nothing. Picture this: a 19-year-old girl stumbling through the pack house corridors, her fingers trailing along familiar walls, knowing that every single person she passes is staring at her with either pity or disgust. The scent of their judgment hangs in the air like smoke, thick, suffocating, impossible to ignore. That's Willow Ashwood, the blind Omega, who wasn't supposed to survive past her first shift. But here's the thing about being born different in a world that worships perfection. It either breaks you completely, or it forges you into something unbreakable. Willow just didn't know which one she was yet. Chapter 1. The Fall. The pack house reeked of tension that morning. Willow could smell it the moment she woke in her cramped storage room, that acrid scent of barely contained aggression mixed with the metallic tang of fear. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. Willow. Alpha Morgana's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. Her stepmother's tone carried that particular edge that meant trouble, the kind of trouble that usually ended with Willow bleeding, or broken, or both. She pulled herself from her thin mattress on the storage room floor, her bare feet touching the cold concrete. Around her, boxes of canned goods and cleaning supplies created a maze she'd memorized through years of exile. This wasn't a bedroom, it was a punishment, a daily reminder that she didn't belong with the real wolves. "Coming, Alpha," Willow called back, her voice steady, despite the fear clawing at her throat. She'd learned long ago that showing weakness only made things worse. The pack house common room fell silent when she entered. That wasn't normal. Usually morning brought the comfortable chaos of pack life, wolves arguing over breakfast, pups playing, the constant undercurrent of conversation and laughter. This silence was different. It was the silence of a tribunal. Willow's enhanced hearing picked up everything her eyes couldn't see. 23 heartbeats. The entire pack council was here. Alpha Morgana's breathing was steady, controlled. She'd been planning this. Beta James shifted nervously in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. And there, in the corner, Willow caught the faint scent of tears and shame. Seraphina. Even her perfect half-sister was crying. "Willow Ashwood." Alpha Morgana's voice rang out with ceremonial formality. "You stand before the pack council to answer charges brought against your bloodline." Charges. Willow's blood turned to ice. In werewolf society, charges against an Omega meant only one thing. What charges? Willow managed, though her enhanced senses were already giving her the answer. Fear sweat from the council members. The scent of preparation for violence. Someone had sharpened silver weapons recently. She could smell the metallic residue on multiple hands. Genetic contamination, Elder Morrison's gravelly voice announced. "It has come to our attention that your condition poses a threat to future bloodlines. Blind wolves are genetic dead ends, child. The bloodline dies with you, and we cannot allow you to pass your defects to another generation." The words hit like physical blows. Willow had known this day might come, but knowing and experiencing were two different things entirely. "But I've never even been near a male," Willow protested, her voice cracking despite her efforts to stay strong. "I've been isolated since my first shift. I've followed every rule, every restriction." "That's precisely the problem," Alpha Morgana interrupted, and Willow could hear the satisfied smile in her voice. "You're 19 years old, Willow. By pack law, unmated Omegas of breeding age who pose genetic risks must be removed for the good of the bloodline." Removed. Such a clean word for murder. "Even I can't save you from pack law, darling," Morgana continued, her false sympathy making Willow's stomach turn. "The council has voted. You have 72 hours to leave pack territory. If you're found within our boundaries after that time, you'll be eliminated as a rogue threat." The room spun around Willow. She gripped the back of a nearby chair to keep from falling, her knuckles going white with the pressure. Banishment during the blood moon. They weren't just exiling her, they were sending her to die. "You can't do this," Willow whispered. But even as she said it, she knew they absolutely could. In werewolf society, the pack's genetic purity trumped individual rights every single time, and she, the blind Omega, was the ultimate genetic impurity. "The decision is final," Elder Morrison declared. "You have until sunset tomorrow to gather what you can carry and leave. May the moon goddess have mercy on your soul." Willow stood there for a moment, surrounded by the sense of people who'd watched her grow up, people who'd shared meals with her, people who'd once claimed to care about her. Now they smelled of relief. Relief that the pack's embarrassment would finally be gone. "Fine," Willow said, lifting her chin with a dignity she didn't feel. "But when you're all sitting here in your perfect pack house with your perfect bloodlines, remember that you chose fear over compassion. Remember that you threw away a pack member because she was different, not because she was dangerous." She turned to leave, using her memory of the room's layout to navigate around chairs and council members, but just before she reached the door, Alpha Morgana's voice stopped her cold. "Oh, and Willow? Don't think about running to another pack for sanctuary. I've already sent word to our allies. They know what you are, and they know you're not welcome anywhere. The Forbidden Woods are your only option now." The Forbidden Woods, where rogues hunted for sport, where lone wolves went to die. Willow didn't respond. She couldn't, because if she opened her mouth she was going to scream, and she refused to give them that satisfaction. She made it back to her storage room before the tears came. Great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body as she collapsed onto her thin mattress. She'd known this life was temporary. She'd always known that someday, her differences would catch up to her. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. As the sun set on what would be her last day in the only home she'd ever known, Willow began to pack. She didn't have much. A few changes of clothes, a water bottle, the small knife her grandmother had left her. But as she ran her fingers over each item, she made herself a promise. She wasn't going to die in those woods. She was going to survive. And someday, somehow, she was going to prove them all wrong about what it meant to be different. She just had no idea that golden eyes were already watching from the shadows, waiting for her to step into the darkness where her real story would finally begin. But before we dive deeper into Willow's incredible transformation, I need to ask you a quick favor. If you're already captivated by Willow's journey from rejected Omega to something far more powerful, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you're going to want to be here for every twist in this story. And I promise you, what happens next will completely shatter everything you think you know about Willow's true identity. Your support helps me bring you more stories like this, where the underdog doesn't just survive, but rises to claim their destiny. Chapter 2. The Forbidden Woods welcomed Willow with thorns and shadows. She'd been walking for 6 hours, her bare feet bleeding inside boots that had seen better years, when she first heard the hunting party behind her. Their voices carried on the wind, rough, excited, predatory. "Blind Omega won't last the night," one of them laughed. "Might as well have some fun before the blood moon drives us all mad." Rogues. Willow's heart hammered against her ribs as she pressed herself behind a massive oak tree, its bark rough against her cheek. She'd heard stories about the wolves who'd been cast out from their packs, who'd turned feral and violent. They hunted alone wolves for entertainment, and a blind Omega was the ultimate prize, helpless prey that couldn't even see death coming. "Can you smell her?" Another voice called out. Closer now. Too close. Sweet little Omega, all alone and afraid. Willow bit down on her lip to keep from whimpering. They were right. She was afraid, terrified, but she was also something they didn't expect her to be: smart. Growing up blind had taught her to use every other sense with supernatural precision. She could track the rogues by their heartbeats, predict their movements by the way they disturbed the forest floor, anticipate their direction by how their scent carried on the wind patterns. There were 4 of them, 2 approaching from her left, moving in a standard hunting formation, one coming straight ahead, loud and confident, and one, the dangerous one, circling around to flank her from the right. He was the quietest, the most controlled, the pack leader. Willow closed her eyes and let her other senses take over completely. The forest came alive around her. Every snapping twig, every bird's warning call, every shift in the wind. This wasn't her prison anymore. This was her advantage. She waited until they were all within striking distance, then moved. Willow didn't run in a straight line like they expected. Instead, she wove between trees she'd memorized by scent and sound, leading them deeper into the thorniest part of the underbrush. Her small size let her slip through gaps they couldn't follow, and her silent movement kept them guessing where she'd gone next. Where is she? The lead rogue's frustration was delicious. She was right here. Maybe she fell into the ravine, another suggested. But Willow was 20 feet away, crouched in a thicket that smelled of fox den and old bones. She'd learned to control her breathing, to slow her heartbeat, to make herself invisible through stillness, skills that a seeing wolf never would have developed. She waited there for 3 hours, long enough for them to give up and move on to easier prey, long enough for the moon to rise higher and cast silver shadows through the canopy above. When she finally emerged from her hiding spot, Willow realized something that made her chest tight with emotion. For the first time in her life, she'd outsmarted trained hunters. She'd used her perceived weakness as a strength, and she'd survived. But survival was only the beginning. She still needed food, water, shelter, and safety, and the blood moon was rising higher every hour, driving every wolf in the forest toward madness. Willow picked a direction and started walking. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. The moon goddess never gives us more than we can handle, little star. She just likes to see us figure out how strong we really are. 3 days later, Willow was dying. Not dramatically, not all at once, but with the slow, grinding certainty of starvation and exposure. She'd found water, a small stream that tasted of minerals and moss, but food was nearly impossible to locate by scent alone. The few berries she'd managed to forage had made her violently sick, and she didn't dare try to hunt anything with just her grandmother's small knife. She was huddled against a fallen log, shivering despite her fever, when she heard the footsteps. Not rogues this time. Something else. Something massive. The scent hit her first alpha pheromones so powerful they made her omega instincts scream in recognition. But underneath the dominance was something else. Something warm and protective, and impossibly familiar, though she knew she'd never encountered anything like it before. Willow struggled to sit up straighter, her whole body trembling with weakness and adrenaline. Who's there? Silence. But she could feel eyes on her, golden eyes, though she didn't know how she knew that detail. Please, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm not a threat. I'm just trying to survive. A low sound rumbled through the forest. Not quite a growl, not quite a whine, communication, but not in any language she recognized. Then she heard it, the soft pad of enormous paws approaching slowly, carefully, as if the creature was trying not to frighten her further. Willow held perfectly still, as the presence settled beside her fallen log. She could feel body heat radiating from something huge, could smell that intoxicating alpha scent growing stronger by the second. Her omega wolf stirred for the first time since her banishment, responding to whatever was near her with interest instead of fear. A gentle nudge against her shoulder made her gasp. Something soft and warm was pressing against her, a massive wolf's muzzle, she realized. He was comforting her? You're in wolf form, Willow whispered, understanding flooding through her. You can't shift back, can you? The blood moon. The wolf made that rumbling sound again, and somehow Willow knew she was right. Whatever this alpha was, he was trapped in his wolf form until the blood moon passed. But instead of running wild like most wolves during this time, he was here, protecting her. The wolf moved away for a moment, and Willow heard him padding through the underbrush. When he returned, he dropped something at her feet. She reached down carefully and nearly cried with relief. Fresh rabbit, cleanly killed and still warm. Thank you, she breathed, her fingers finding the wolf's massive head to stroke his fur in gratitude. He was enormous, bigger than any wolf she'd ever heard described. His fur was thick and soft, and when she touched him, Her Omega wolf practically purred with contentment. As Willow used her small knife to prepare the rabbit, the wolf settled beside her like a living windbreak. His presence was overwhelming, in the best way, protective, warm, and strangely familiar, like coming home to a place she'd never been. "I don't know who you are," Willow said softly as she worked, "but I'm Willow. Willow Ashwood, former Omega of the Crescent Moon Pack, current nobody in particular." The wolf huffed, a sound that somehow conveyed disagreement. "You don't think I'm nobody?" Willow smiled despite everything. "Well, you're the first." She cooked the rabbit over a small fire. The wolf helped her build, his larger paws bringing dry wood while she arranged kindling. It was the most domestic thing she'd ever experienced, and the strangest, sharing a meal with a mysterious alpha wolf in the middle of the forbidden woods, both of them trapped by circumstances beyond their control. After she'd eaten and felt strength returning to her limbs, Willow curled up against the wolf's warm side. He was massive enough that she felt completely protected, hidden against his bulk. "Will you stay?" she asked quietly. "Just until morning?" The wolf's response was to curl around her more tightly, his muzzle resting against her hair. For the first time since her banishment, Willow fell asleep feeling safe. She woke to the sound of approaching danger. Chapter 3. Dawn brought hunters. Not rogues this time. These were organized, disciplined, moving with the precision of trained trackers. Willow could smell their determination, their weapons, their absolute confidence that they would find their prey. "She's close," a familiar voice called out. Jonah, young Alpha Jonah, from the neighboring Silver Ridge pack, the same wolf who'd shown her kindness once before, rejecting her completely. "I can smell the Omega." Willow's blood turned to ice. They weren't just hunting any Omega, they were hunting her specifically. The massive black wolf beside her raised his head, instantly alert. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest, not loud enough for the hunters to hear, but vibrating through Willow's entire body where she pressed against his side. "They found me," Willow whispered, her voice barely audible. "My stepmother must have put a bounty on my head." The wolf's growl intensified. She could feel the rage radiating from him, controlled but absolutely lethal. Whoever this alpha was, the idea of hunters pursuing her made him furious. "There," another voice, sharp with excitement. "Fresh tracks by the stream." They had maybe minutes before being discovered. Willow's mind raced through possibilities. She could try to run, but she was still weak from days of near starvation. She could hide, but trained trackers would find her eventually. Or, "Go," Willow whispered to the wolf, her hands fisting in his thick fur. "You don't owe me anything. Save yourself." The response was immediate and unmistakable. The wolf moved to stand over her, his massive body creating a living shield between Willow and the approaching threat. His message was clear. He wasn't going anywhere. Stubborn alpha, Willow breathed, but she couldn't deny the warmth that flooded her chest. No one had ever protected her before. No one had ever chosen her safety over their own. The wolf nudged her toward a thick cluster of thorn bushes, his meaning obvious. Willow crawled into the natural shelter, just as the hunting party broke through the tree line. "Definitely Omega," Jonah announced, his voice carrying the authority of an alpha despite his youth. "But there's something else. Another scent." Willow held her breath, praying the thorns would hide her completely. Through the gaps in the branches, she could see boots and legs as the hunters spread out, searching. Then she heard it, a sound that made her blood freeze in her veins. The black wolf stepped into the clearing. "Holy shit," one of the hunters breathed. "Look at the size of that thing." Willow's heart hammered against her ribs. What was he doing? He could have stayed hidden, could have let them pass without ever knowing he existed. Instead, he was deliberately drawing their attention away from her hiding spot. "That's no ordinary wolf," Jonah said, his voice tight with caution. That's massive. I've never seen anything like it." The black wolf stood perfectly still in the center of the clearing, his golden eyes fixed on the hunting party with unblinking intensity. He wasn't aggressive. Not yet. but every line of his body promised violence if they took one step closer to Willow's hiding place. "Maybe we should go around," one hunter suggested. "Find the Omega another way." "No," Jonah replied, though Willow could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "We have our orders. The Crescent Moon Pack wants her brought back for proper execution. We're not leaving without her." The word execution hit Willow like a physical blow. They weren't here to capture her. They were here to kill her and drag her body back as proof. The Black Wolf's growl filled the clearing, low, rumbling, absolutely deadly. His hackles rose, making him appear even larger than before. Whatever mercy he might have shown evaporated the moment he heard their true intentions. "Back away slowly," Jonah ordered his hunting party, finally recognizing the danger they were facing. "That wolf there's something wrong with it. Something different." But it was too late for caution. The moment Jonah took a step toward Willow's hiding place, the Black Wolf attacked. It wasn't a fight, it was a massacre. Willow had never seen anything move so fast, or so lethally. The wolf was a blur of black fur and flashing teeth, taking down trained hunters like they were pups playing at war. His strategy was perfect, his execution flawless. Within minutes, the entire hunting party was either dead or fleeing in absolute terror. Jonah was the last to fall. The young alpha had shifted to his wolf form, thinking that would give him an advantage, but he was nothing compared to the massive Black Wolf. One precise bite to the throat, and Jonah was down, his life bleeding out onto the forest floor. When the clearing fell silent, except for Willow's ragged breathing, the Black Wolf turned toward her hiding place. His golden eyes were still glowing with battle fury, his muzzle stained with blood, but when he looked at her, his expression gentled completely. Willow crawled out of the thorn bushes, her whole body shaking with adrenaline and shock. "You saved me," she whispered. "You killed them all to save me." The wolf approached slowly, carefully, as if aware that his display of violence might have frightened her, but Willow wasn't afraid. She was awed. "Who are you?" she asked, reaching out to touch his blood-stained muzzle. "What are you?" "That wasn't normal wolf fighting. That was something else entirely." The wolf leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly at the contact. When he opened them again, Willow saw something that made her heart stop. Intelligence. Ancient, powerful, unmistakably human intelligence. This wasn't just any alpha wolf trapped by the blood moon. This was someone important, someone powerful enough to destroy a hunting party single-handedly, someone whose very presence made her Omega Wolf sing with recognition and desire. "You can understand every word I'm saying, can't you?" Willow whispered. "And you chose to save me, a worthless blind Omega that everyone wants dead." The wolf's response was to gently take her hand in his massive jaws. Not biting, just holding. His touch was impossibly gentle for something capable of such destruction. "Will you take me away from here?" Willow asked. "Somewhere they can't find me?" The wolf released her hand and moved toward the forest's deeper shadows, pausing to look back at her. His meaning was clear. "Follow me." As Willow gathered her few possessions and prepared to leave the clearing behind, she caught sight of Jonah's body one more time. The young alpha who'd once shown her false kindness, who'd helped orchestrate her death, was now nothing more than a cautionary tale about underestimating the power of true protection. "Thank you," she said quietly to the Black Wolf as they disappeared into the forest together. "I don't know what I did to deserve your protection, but thank you." The wolf's response was a gentle nudge against her shoulder, steering her toward whatever sanctuary he had in mind. Willow didn't know where they were going, or who her mysterious guardian truly was, but for the first time since her banishment, she felt something she'd thought was lost forever. Hope. Little did she know that the wolf beside her was about to change not just her survival chances, but her understanding of everything she thought she knew about herself. Chapter 4. The hidden cave system was unlike anything Willow had ever imagined. Her mysterious wolf guardian led her through a series of concealed passages that opened into vast underground chambers. The air smelled of ancient stone and underground rivers, but underneath those scents was something else. the lingering traces of pack life. Old pack life. This place had once been home to wolves, but not recently. This is incredible, Willow breathed, her enhanced hearing mapping the space around her. The acoustics suggested massive chambers connected by smaller tunnels, with water running somewhere in the distance. How did you find this place? The black wolf padded ahead of her, his footsteps sure and confident. He knew these tunnels like he'd been here before, like he'd been here many times. When they reached what felt like a central chamber, the wolf stopped. Willow heard him moving around the space, and then there was the scratch and flare of a match being lit. Impossible, wolves couldn't use matches. Unless... You shifted back, Willow realized, her voice echoing slightly in the large space. The blood moon must be waning. Not quite, a voice replied, and Willow's world tilted off its axis. The voice was deep, cultured, carrying an authority that made her Omega Wolf immediately want to submit. But more than that, it was familiar in a way that made no sense. She'd never heard this voice before, but something in her soul recognized it completely. You can speak, Willow whispered, her hands reaching out to steady herself against the cave wall. You're in human form. Hybrid form, he corrected gently. The blood moon isn't fully passed, so I'm not entirely human yet, but I can manage speech, and I can light fires. Willow heard him moving around the chamber, and soon the space filled with the warm glow of what must have been multiple torches. She couldn't see the light, but she could feel the heat, could smell the burning pitch. What is this place? She asked, her voice small in the vast space. The original territory of the ancient moon pack, the Alpha replied. They ruled these lands for over 1,000 years before the Great War scattered the bloodlines. These caves were their winter sanctuary. And you just know this? How? A long pause. Willow could hear him breathing, could sense his careful consideration of how much to reveal. I know, because my bloodline carries their history, he said finally. Because some knowledge passes from alpha to alpha, generation to generation. And because I've been searching for these caves for a very long time. Searching for them? Why? Because, his voice grew softer, more uncertain, the prophecies said, I would find my mate here. Willow's breath caught. Mate. The word hung in the air between them like a living thing. But I'm not... I can't be... Willow struggled with the words. I'm just a blind Omega. A genetic dead end. No Alpha would want me as a mate, let alone an Alpha powerful enough to know ancient prophecies. Sit, the Alpha said gently. Please, let me show you something. Willow heard him moving, and then felt his presence settle near her, close enough that his scent overwhelmed her senses. Pine and leather, and something wild that made her mouth go dry. Give me your hands, he requested. Willow hesitated, then slowly extended her hands toward his voice. His fingers wrapped around hers, and the moment they touched, electricity shot through her entire body. Her Omega Wolf howled with recognition and desire. Feel this, the Alpha said, guiding her hands to what felt like stone. But not just any stone, carved stone. Ancient symbols cut deep into rock. What am I touching? The mating stone of the ancient moon pack. Legend says it glows when touched by true mates destined to restore the bloodline. Willow's fingers traced the intricate carvings, following patterns that seemed to shift and dance under her touch. I can't see if it's glowing. Trust me. The Alpha's voice was rough with emotion. It's glowing like the sun itself. Willow snatched her hands back, her heart racing. That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm worthless. Everyone knows that. Everyone is wrong. The authority in his voice made her shiver. Willow, your grandmother was Elena Ashwood, correct? Yes. But how did you... Elena Ashwood was the lost princess of the ancient moon bloodline. She was hidden among the Crescent Moon Pack to protect her from enemies who wanted to wipe out the royal bloodline completely. The cave seemed to spin around Willow. You're lying. My grandmother was just a pack Omega. She cleaned and cooked, and had prophetic dreams, and could heal with her touch, and could communicate with the forest spirits that others couldn't see or hear. Willow's mouth fell open. Those were all abilities her grandmother had possessed, abilities that had been dismissed as old wives' tales or Omega intuition. Which means, the Alpha continued relentlessly, that you carry the ancient moon royal bloodline. You're not a worthless Omega, Willow. You're a lost princess, whose power has been suppressed by people who feared what you could become. But I'm blind, Willow protested weakly. Ancient moon royals weren't meant to see the physical world the same way others do. They were meant to see deeper, to see truth, to see souls, to see the connections that bind all living things together. His voice grew reverent. You're not defective, Willow. You're exactly what you were meant to be. Willow sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything he'd revealed. Royal bloodline, ancient prophecies, true mates. It was too much. I need proof, she said finally. If what you're saying is true, I should be able to do things, special things. You can, the Alpha assured her, but your power has been suppressed by years of being told you were worthless. We need to awaken what's been sleeping inside you. How? Trials, he said simply. 3 trials that will unlock your true heritage. But I have to warn you, they won't be easy, and they'll be dangerous. If you fail, I die? Worse, your bloodline dies with you, and the ancient moon pack remains lost forever. Willow considered this. She could stay here in the caves, hide from the world, live as a refugee under this mysterious Alpha's protection, safe, but unchanged, still believing she was worthless. Or she could risk everything to discover if there was truth in his impossible claims. What are the trials? She asked. She heard him smile in his voice. The first trial is navigation. You must find your way through the labyrinth of echoes, using only your enhanced senses. At the center, you'll find an object that belongs to your bloodline. And if I get lost? The labyrinth doesn't kill those who get lost. It just keeps them wandering until they give up hope. But Willow, his voice grew serious. I believe you're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived banishment, starvation, rogue attacks, and assassination attempts. A maze can't break someone who's already proven unbreakable. Willow stood slowly, her decision made. Show me this labyrinth. Willow, the Alpha's voice stopped her. Before we begin, there's something else you should know. What? My name. It's Jonah. Jonah Shadowbane. Willow's blood froze. Shadowbane. As in, the Alpha King bloodline. Yes. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. I'm the Alpha King, Willow, the most powerful shapeshifter in the known world, and I've been searching for you my entire life. The Alpha King. The legendary ruler, whose very name made other Alphas bow their heads in respect. The wolf who controlled territories spanning 3 states, who commanded the loyalty of over 50 packs. And he'd been protecting her, saving her, claiming she was his destined mate. Willow's knees gave out. She sat down hard on the cave floor, her mind reeling. Breathe, Jonah said gently, his voice closer now. I know it's overwhelming. Overwhelming? Willow laughed. The sound edged with hysteria. The Alpha King just told me I'm a lost princess and his destined mate. Overwhelming doesn't begin to cover it. I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid you'd run. Where exactly would I run to? Willow asked dryly. In case you forgot, I'm wanted dead by pretty much everyone. Not everyone, Jonah corrected softly. Not by me. Never by me. The gentleness in his voice nearly undid her. This powerful, deadly Alpha, the same one who'd slaughtered an entire hunting party to protect her, was speaking to her like she was precious, like she mattered. Why me? Willow whispered. If you're the Alpha King, you could have anyone. Beautiful female alphas, perfect beta mates, wolves with prestigious bloodlines and working eyes. Why would you want a blind Omega everyone else throws away? Because, Jonah said, his voice rough with emotion, I don't need a queen who can see the world the way everyone else does. I need a queen who can see souls, who can see truth, who can see the connections between all living things that others miss, completely. He paused, and Willow heard him move closer. Because I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who see my power and want to use it. You're the first person who's ever looked at me, even without sight, and seen just Jonah. Not the Alpha King, not a political alliance, not a means to power, just me. Willow's throat tightened with emotion. She understood that loneliness, that isolation of being valued only for what others could gain from you. The trials, she said, changing the subject before she started crying. If I fail, what happens to you? I continue ruling alone, Jonah replied simply. I continue searching for a way to restore the ancient moon bloodline. I continue hoping that someday, the prophecies will be fulfilled. And if I succeed, then we face whatever comes next together. As mates, as partners, as the restoration of two bloodlines that were meant to unite. Willow stood again, her decision crystallizing into determination. Show me the labyrinth. Willow, show me, she repeated firmly. I've spent my entire life being told what I can't do. I want to find out what I can do. Jonah was quiet for a moment, then she heard him stand as well. Follow me, he said. And Willow, whatever happens in there, remember that you're stronger than you know, you're braver than you believe, and you're definitely not worthless. As they walked toward whatever challenge awaited her, Willow felt something shifting inside her chest. Not quite confidence, not quite power, but something close to both. For the first time in her life, she was about to discover what she was truly capable of. And if Jonah was right about her heritage, the world was about to learn that some bloodlines don't stay buried forever. Now, if you're as invested in Willow's awakening as I am, do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're about to dive into the trials that will either unlock Willow's true power or destroy her completely. And honestly, after everything she's been through, she deserves to have people in her corner. Plus, your subscription helps me continue bringing you these epic supernatural romance stories. Drop a comment and let me know. You think Willow has what it takes to pass the ancient moon trials? Because what's coming next is going to test everything she believes about herself. Chapter 5. The Labyrinth of Echoes lived up to its name. Willow had been navigating the twisting passages for what felt like hours, using her enhanced hearing to map the acoustic properties of each turn. The labyrinth was designed to confuse even those who could see Mias walls that looked identical, passages that doubled back on themselves, false paths that led to dead ends. But for Willow, the maze revealed patterns that visual navigation would miss. Each passage had its own sound signature. This corridor amplified footsteps with a hollow echo that suggested high ceilings. That tunnel absorbed sound, meaning thick walls or earth above. The path to her right carried the subtle whisper of moving air, indicating it led toward an opening. Trust your instincts, she whispered to herself, repeating Jonah's advice. You were born for this. Born for this. The idea still seemed impossible. Royal bloodline, ancient powers, true mate to the Alpha King. Part of her expected to wake up back in her storage room, discovering this was all an elaborate dream brought on by malnutrition. But the stone beneath her feet was real. The cool air carrying hints of underground water was real, and the growing sense of something pulling her forward was definitely real. Willow had been following that pull for the past hour. It wasn't logical, wasn't based on sound or scent or any sense she could name. It was deeper than that. An instinct that seemed to whisper this way whenever she reached a decision point. Left here, she murmured, following the invisible guidance toward a passage that felt different from the others, warmer, more welcoming. As she walked, Willow became aware of something else. She wasn't alone in the labyrinth. Not Jonah. He'd stayed behind at the entrance, giving her space to complete the trial on her own. This presence was older, ancient, like whispers of memory built into the very stones. Who's there? Willow called softly, her voice echoing off the stone walls. The response came not as words, but as images flooding her mind, visions of wolves running through moonlit forests, of a great pack that once ruled these lands, of a bloodline stretching back through centuries of power and wisdom. And then, clear as if someone were standing beside her, a familiar voice. My little star. Willow's heart stopped. Grandmother. You're so close, Willow. So close to understanding what you truly are. Alina Ashwood's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, woven into the very fabric of the labyrinth itself. I don't understand, Willow whispered, tears streaming down her face. You're dead. You've been dead for 3 years. Death is just another form of transformation, child. My body is gone, but my essence remains tied to this place, to our bloodline, to you. I've been waiting so long for you to find your way here. Willow pressed her hand against the wall, feeling warmth pulse beneath her palm. Jonah told me things. About our family, about what I might be. Jonah Shadowbane speaks truth. You carry the ancient moon royal bloodline, Willow. You are the last hope for our people's restoration. But I'm broken, Willow protested. I'm blind. I'm weak. You are perfect. Alina's voice carried absolute conviction. Do you think your blindness was an accident? A curse? Child, you were born exactly as the moon goddess intended. Your physical sight was taken so that your spiritual sight could flourish. As her grandmother spoke, Willow became aware of something incredible happening around her. The labyrinth was changing. Not physically, but in her perception. She could suddenly sense the layout of every passage, every dead end, every secret chamber. The maze that had seemed impossibly complex moments ago now felt as familiar as her own heartbeat. Follow your true sight, Elena whispered. Not the path your feet want to take, but the path your soul recognizes. Willow closed her eyes, a meaningless gesture for someone already blind, but somehow it helped her focus. When she opened them again, she gasped. She could see, not with her physical eyes, which remained as sightless as ever, but with something deeper. The labyrinth glowed around her in shades of silver and gold, each passage marked with symbols that pulsed with ancient power, and ahead, blazing like a beacon, was her destination. The center, Willow breathed. I can see the center. Then go, my little star. Claim what belongs to you. Willow ran. She moved through the passages with confidence now, following the golden path that only she could perceive. The labyrinth seemed to welcome her, walls shifting to create shortcuts that hadn't existed moments before. This wasn't just a maze, it was a living test, one that responded to the worthiness of those who attempted it. The center chamber took her breath away. Even without physical sight, Willow could perceive its majesty, a circular room with a domed ceiling that seemed to reach toward the heavens. Ancient murals covered every surface. She couldn't see them clearly, but she could feel their power, their history, their connection to her bloodline. And in the very center, on a pedestal of white marble, sat her prize. The moonstone crown, Elena's voice whispered reverently, worn by every ancient moon queen for over 1,000 years. It's been waiting for you, Willow. Willow approached slowly, her enhanced senses revealing details that sight never could. The crown was beautiful beyond description. Silver worked with moonstone that seemed to hold actual starlight, but more than its beauty, she could feel its power. Ancient magic that recognized her bloodline, that had been sleeping until she arrived to awaken it. If I touch it, Willow said quietly, there's no going back, is there? No, Elena admitted. Once you claim your heritage, you can never again be the powerless Omega they tried to make you. You'll be responsible for restoring our people, for ruling alongside your mate, for bringing balance back to a world that has forgotten what true strength looks like. Willow reached out, her fingers hovering inches from the crown. What if I'm not strong enough? Child, Elena's voice was warm with love and pride. You survived 19 years of abuse and still emerged with compassion in your heart. You endured banishment and chose hope over despair. You faced assassins and chose to trust a stranger who offered protection. You are the strongest person I have ever known. Willow's fingers closed around the crown. The moment she touched it, power exploded through her entire being, not painful, but overwhelming, like trying to contain an ocean in a teacup. Her Omega wolf, suppressed for so long, roared to life with strength that shook the very foundations of the chamber. But she wasn't just Omega anymore. Alpha power flooded through her as well, the dual nature of royal bloodlines awakening after generations of dormancy. She was both, and neither, and something entirely new. Willow. Jonah's voice echoed through the labyrinth, filled with concern and wonder. The entire cave system is shaking. What's happening? I'm becoming who I was meant to be, Willow called back, her voice carrying new authority that made the walls themselves seem to listen. She placed the crown on her head, and the world changed forever. Suddenly, she could see everything. Not just the chamber around her, but the truth of things. The golden threads that connected all living beings. The auras of power that surrounded every supernatural creature. The deep scars in the world where ancient bloodlines had been severed or corrupted. And most incredibly, she could see Jonah. He appeared in the chamber entrance, like something out of a dream. Tall, powerfully built, with the kind of masculine beauty that belonged in legends. But it was his aura that took her breath away. Golden light shot through with silver, the unmistakable signature of a true king. And wrapped around that light, binding it, completing it, was a thread of deep blue that she somehow knew led directly back to her. The mate bond. Visible, tangible, undeniable. Willow, Jonah breathed, staring at her in wonder. You're glowing. She looked down at herself and laughed with pure joy. She was glowing a silver light that seemed to emanate from her very soul, marking her as ancient moon royalty for anyone with the eyes to see it. I can see you, Willow whispered, her voice filled with awe. I can actually see you. Jonah stepped into the chamber, his own power responding to hers, and Willow realized something that made her heart race with anticipation and terror in equal measure. They weren't just mates. They were equals. Two royal bloodlines, restored and united, with power that could reshape the supernatural world. The prophecy, Jonah said softly. The ancient moon princess and the shadow king, united to restore balance. It was always about us. Together, Willow agreed, understanding flooding through her with perfect clarity. We were never meant to rule alone. But even as joy filled her heart, Willow's newfound sight showed her something else. Dark threads spreading through the world like a poison. Corruption in the pack system. Bloodlines dying out. The supernatural world slowly destroying itself through politics and prejudice. There's so much work to do, she realized aloud. So much that needs to be healed. Then we'd better get started, Jonah replied, extending his hand toward her. Willow took his hand, and the moment their fingers intertwined, their combined power sang through the ancient chamber. The murals on the walls began to glow, depicting prophecies of restoration and renewal. But their moment of triumph was shattered by a sound that made both their blood run cold. Howls, dozens of them, coming from the cave entrance. They found us, Jonah growled, his protective instincts flaring. Your stepmother must have followed our trail. Willow's enhanced sight showed her the truth. A massive pack army surrounding the cave system. Alpha Morgana had brought every ally she could gather, determined to eliminate the threat. Willow represented before her power could fully awaken. They're too late, Willow said, with quiet confidence. I'm not the helpless Omega they're expecting anymore. Willow, Jonah's voice carried warning. You've just awakened powers that have been dormant for generations. You're not ready for a full battle. She turned to face him, her new sight revealing the concern and love blazing in his aura. Maybe not, but I'm ready to stop running. The howls grew closer, more urgent. Soon they'd be facing an army that wanted them both dead. What do we do? Jonah asked, though Willow could see he already knew the answer. We go up there, Willow said firmly, together, and we show them what happens when you try to destroy something that was meant to restore the world. As they prepared to face the army above, Willow felt her grandmother's presence one last time. I'm so proud of you, my little star. Now go show them what ancient moon queens are really capable of. Willow squeezed Jonah's hand, drawing strength from their bond, and together they walked toward whatever battle awaited them above. But she was no longer the broken, powerless Omega who'd been cast out of the Crescent Moon Pack. She was Willow Ashwood, last princess of the ancient moon bloodline, mate to the Alpha King, and the supernatural world's last hope for balance. And she was done being underestimated. Chapter 6. The cave entrance was surrounded. Willow's enhanced sight revealed the full scope of the army arrayed against them. Over 200 wolves from 6 different packs, all united by Alpha Morgana's promise of reward for destroying the abomination that threatened their way of life. Impressive turnout, Jonah commented dryly, his own power coiling in preparation for battle. Your stepmother really went all out. Willow studied the formation with her newfound strategic awareness. They're afraid. Look at their auras. Half of them don't even want to be here. They're following orders, not conviction. It was true. Her spiritual sight showed the difference between the few wolves burning with genuine hatred and the many who simply feared defying their alphas. This wasn't a united force. It was a collection of individuals held together by politics and fear. Willow Ashwood. Alpha Morgana's voice rang across the forest clearing. I know you're in there. Come out and face judgment for your crimes against the natural order. Crimes, Willow muttered. What exactly is my crime? Being born different? Being born at all, apparently, Jonah replied, his jaw tight with controlled rage. But they're not getting you. Not now, not ever. Willow placed a hand on his arm, feeling the deadly power thrumming beneath his skin. Jonah, wait. Let me try something first. Willow? Trust me, she said softly. I need to try to reach them. Some of these wolves are here because they don't know any better. If I can show them the truth. Jonah looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her tone stopped him. What do you have in mind? The same thing my grandmother would have done. Lead with compassion, not violence. Willow stepped toward the cave mouth, her crown catching the moonlight and casting silver rays across the stone. The moment she appeared, a ripple of shock went through the assembled army. She's glowing, someone whispered. Why is she glowing like that? Witchcraft? Alpha Morgana snarled, but Willow could see the fear in her stepmother's aura. Fear and something else. Recognition. On some level, Morgana knew exactly what she was looking at. Hello, stepmother, Willow called out, her voice carrying clearly across the clearing. Thank you for bringing everyone together. It saves me the trouble of introducing myself properly. You're still the same worthless Omega, Morgana replied, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. Pretty lights don't change genetics. You're right, Willow agreed, stepping fully into the moonlight. They don't change genetics. They reveal them. She removed the moonstone crown from her head, holding it high so every wolf in the army could see it clearly. The ancient artifact blazed with silver fire, its power unmistakable to anyone with supernatural senses. This is the moonstone crown of the ancient moon pack, Willow announced. It has been worn by royal queens for over 1,000 years. It only responds to those carrying the true bloodline. A murmur went through the crowd. Even the most ignorant pack members knew the legends of the ancient moon royalty. Impossible, Alpha Morgana breathed, but her certainty was cracking. My grandmother was Elena Ashwood, hidden princess of the ancient moon bloodline, which makes me. Willow placed the crown back on her head, and her power flared bright enough to illuminate the entire clearing. The rightful queen of the bloodline, you all thought was extinct. Lies, Morgana shouted, but several pack members were already backing away. Fighting in Omega was one thing. Fighting ancient royalty was another matter entirely. Not lies, Jonah said, stepping up beside Willow. His own power blazed golden in response to hers, and the combined display made even the boldest wolves in the army take nervous steps backward. And as the Alpha King, I formally recognize Queen Willow's claim to her ancestral throne. The Alpha King. Willow watched the news ripple through the crowd like a physical wave. Half the wolves immediately dropped into submissive postures. Defying a local alpha was risky, but defying the Alpha King was suicide. This is impossible, Alpha Morgana said, her voice shrill with desperation. She's blind. She's weak. She's nothing. I was never nothing, Willow replied, her voice carrying the authority of generations of royal blood. I was suppressed. Hidden. forced to believe I was less than I am. But that ends tonight. She stepped forward, her spiritual sight revealing the truth about every wolf in the army. I can see all of you now. Really see you. Your fears, your hopes, your true natures. And I know that most of you came here because you were told I was a threat to your families. Willow's gaze moved across the crowd, making eye contact even with those too far away to physically see. But I'm not your enemy. The real threat is the system that told you genetic differences make someone disposable. The system that values conformity over strength. The system that almost destroyed the last hope for balance in our world. She's manipulating you, Morgana shrieked. Don't listen to her twisted words. But Willow's sincerity blazed in her aura like a beacon, impossible to fake or hide. More wolves were backing away, unwilling to attack someone whose only crime was being different. I'm offering you a choice, Willow continued, her voice gentle but implacable. You can continue following leaders who rule through fear and prejudice, who would execute their own pack members for the crime of genetic variation, or you can help me build something better. What kind of something better? A voice called from the crowd, a young beta female, whose aura showed more curiosity than fear. A world where strength is measured by character, not genetics, where different doesn't mean disposable, where every wolf has value, regardless of their rank or abilities. Willow's power pulsed with each word, lending weight to her vision. A world where no child ever again has to grow up, believing they're worthless because they're different. The effect was immediate. Wolves throughout the army began shifting restlessly, many of them remembering their own experiences with the pack hierarchy's cruelty. These weren't evil creatures. They were individuals trapped in a system that punished compassion and rewarded conformity. Don't listen to her, Morgana commanded, but her authority was crumbling by the minute. She's trying to destroy our way of life. Our way of life is what nearly destroyed her, Jonah interjected, his Alpha King authority making every wolf in the clearing freeze. Our way of life is what drives young wolves to suicide, rather than face rejection. Our way of life is what's weakening our bloodlines and dividing our people. The Alpha King speaks truth. An elderly alpha stepped forward, his gray muzzle marking him as a pack elder. My own grandson took his life last year rather than face exile for being different. Perhaps it's time for change. That admission broke something in the crowd. Other wolves began speaking up, sharing their own stories of loss and pain caused by the rigid pack hierarchies. The army that had come to destroy Willow was transforming into something else entirely, a gathering of individuals ready to consider a different path. No, Morgana snarled, her composure finally snapping completely. I will not let some blind freak destroy everything we've built. She shifted to her wolf form mid-sentence, launching herself at Willow with deadly intent. But before she could cross half the distance, Jonah intercepted her. The fight was over in seconds. The Alpha King's power, combined with his protective rage, made Morgana's attack look like a pup challenging a mountain. She hit the ground hard, shifted back to human form, and lay there gasping. Anyone else? Jonah asked mildly, his golden eyes scanning the remaining members of the army who still looked hostile. No one moved. Good, Willow said, approaching her defeated stepmother. Now we can have an honest conversation. She knelt beside Morgana, her enhanced sight revealing the truth of her stepmother's hatred. You knew, didn't you? You always knew what I was. Morgana's laugh was bitter. Of course I knew. Why do you think I worked so hard to keep you suppressed? To make you believe you were worthless? Because you were afraid. Terrified, Morgana admitted. My entire life, my entire identity, was built on being the alpha, being the powerful one, being important, and then there was you, Nians-carrying bloodline, that made mine look like commoner trash. Willow felt pity stir in her heart. You could have helped me. We could have worked together. To what end? So you could take everything I'd worked for? Morgana shook her head. Better to destroy you before you could destroy me. I never wanted to destroy you, Willow said softly. I just wanted to belong. Well, congratulations. Now you belong at the top of the supernatural food chain, I hope it's everything you dreamed of." There was so much bitterness in those words, so much pain and regret. Willow realized that her stepmother was as much a victim of the pack system as she was, just a different kind of victim. "It doesn't have to end this way," Willow offered. "You could help me build something better. Help me create a world where no one has to destroy others to feel valuable." For a moment, something flickered in Morgana's eyes. Hope? Maybe. Or longing. But then it died, replaced by resignation. "I'm too old to change, Willow. Too set in my ways, too afraid of losing what little power I have left." She struggled to sit up. "But the others, they're young enough to learn. Maybe you can save them from becoming like me." Willow stood, her heart heavy, but her resolve stronger than ever. She turned to address the crowd one final time. "I'm not asking anyone to follow me out of obligation," she announced. "I'm asking you to think about what kind of world you want to leave for your children. Do you want them to grow up afraid of being different? Or do you want them to grow up knowing that every wolf has value?" The response was overwhelming. Wolves throughout the crowd began dropping to one knee in formal acknowledgement of her authority. Not all of them. Some slipped away into the forest, unwilling to abandon their old ways, but more than half remained, their auras blazing with hope and determination. "My queen," the elderly Alpha said formally, "how do we begin?" Willow looked at Jonah, seeing her own excitement and trepidation reflected in his golden eyes. "Together," she replied. "We begin together." But even as triumph filled her heart, Willow's enhanced sight showed her something troubling. Dark threads were spreading through the supernatural world faster than ever, and her actions tonight had attracted attention from forces far more dangerous than pack armies. "Jonah," she said quietly, "I think we may have bigger problems coming." He followed her gaze toward the horizon, where her spiritual sight revealed shadows moving with unnatural purpose. "The Shadow Council," he realized grimly. "They won't tolerate threats to their power structure." "Then we'd better be ready for them," Willow replied, her hand finding his. "Because I'm done running, and I'm done hiding. Whatever comes next, we face it as equals." As the newly formed alliance prepared to leave for Jonah's territory, Willow took one last look at the cave system, where she'd discovered her true heritage. Her grandmother's presence had faded, but her wisdom remained. The broken, worthless Omega was gone forever. In her place stood Queen Willow Ashwood Shadowbane, ready to reshape the supernatural world. But first, she had to survive the war that was coming. Chapter 7. 3 months later, the world had changed. Willow stood on the balcony of the Shadowbane Castle, her enhanced sight surveying the unprecedented gathering below. Representatives from over 100 packs filled the great courtyard, along with vampires, witches, fae, and other supernatural beings who had never before acknowledged common cause. The Unity Summit, they were calling it, the first interspecies gathering in over 5 centuries. "Having second thoughts?" Jonah asked, joining her at the balcony rail. His presence immediately calmed her nerves, their mate bond stronger than ever after months of working side by side. "About which part?" Willow replied with a wry smile. "Revolutionizing supernatural society, facing down the Shadow Council, or convincing ancient enemies to work together for the common good." "All of it," Jonah admitted. 3 months ago you were a banished Omega. Now you're about to address the most powerful supernatural beings in North America. It's been quite a journey." Willow leaned into his warmth, drawing strength from their connection. "Sometimes I still can't believe it's real, that any of this is real." The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of challenges and victories. Word of Willow's awakening had spread like wildfire through the supernatural community, sparking everything from hope to outright rebellion. Some packs had immediately pledged allegiance to the restored ancient moon bloodline. Others had declared war. The Shadow Council, the secretive group of ancient supernaturals who'd been manipulating pack politics for centuries, had indeed sent assassins. 3 separate attempts on Willow's life, all thwarted by her growing powers and Jonah's unwavering protection. But for every enemy they'd made, they'd gained 2 allies. Wolves who'd suffered under the old system flocked to Willow's banner. Other supernatural species, long excluded from pack politics, saw an opportunity for genuine inclusion. "My queen." A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Serafina, her former half-sister, approached with a formal bow. The perfect beta female, who'd once been destined for alpha greatness, now served as Willow's personal aide. The transformation in Serafina had been remarkable. Once Willow's powers had awakened fully, she'd been able to see the truth of her half-sister's nature, not the cruel, privileged princess everyone believed her to be, but a deeply insecure young woman desperate for approval. When offered genuine friendship instead of rivalry, Serafina had become Willow's most dedicated supporter. "The delegates are ready for your address," Serafina reported. "Though I should warn you, the vampire contingent is still grumbling about the daylight accommodations." "And the Fae representatives?" "Convinced this is all an elaborate trap, but curious enough to stay and listen." Willow nodded. "What about the holdout packs?" 43 packs still refuse to acknowledge your authority," Jonah answered. "Most are waiting to see how this summit goes before making their final decisions." "And the Shadow Council?" "Quiet. Too quiet." Jonah's expression darkened, which makes me more nervous than open hostility would. Willow understood his concern. 3 months of building alliances, and their most dangerous enemies had gone silent. Either they'd given up, unlikely, or they were planning something massive. "Well," Willow said, straightening the moonstone crown on her head, "I suppose there's only one way to find out what they're planning." She walked into the great hall, Jonah at her side, and felt the weight of hundreds of gazes fix on her. The supernatural world's most powerful beings, gathered in one place, all waiting to hear what the blind Omega-turned-queen had to say. "Friends," Willow began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. 3 months ago, I was told I had no value, that genetic differences made me disposable, that the supernatural world would be better off without me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew her story by now. "Today I stand before you not as proof that they were wrong about me, but as proof that they were wrong about the entire system that tried to destroy me." Her power pulsed gently, lending weight to her words without threatening anyone. "How many of you have watched young ones die, rather than face exile for being different? How many of you have lost friends, family members, lovers to a hierarchy that values conformity over strength?" The response was immediate and painful. Throughout the crowd, supernatural beings shifted uncomfortably, remembering their own losses. "The old ways are killing us," Willow continued. "Not just individuals, but entire bloodlines. We're so focused on maintaining genetic purity that we're actually weakening ourselves. The ancient moon pack didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because they were isolated, because they refused to adapt, to include, to grow." She gestured to the diverse crowd before her. "But look at this gathering. Wolves and vampires sharing the same space. Fae and witches acknowledging common ground. For the first time in centuries, our people are talking to each other instead of plotting against each other." "Pretty words," a voice interrupted from the crowd. Elder Reginald of the Northern Territory Pack, one of the most traditional alphas in attendance. "But words don't change nature. Wolves need hierarchy. We need order. We need to evolve," Willow finished firmly. "Elder Reginald, your own pack has lost 12 young wolves to suicide in the past 5 years, all of them ranked as unfits by your pack's standards. Tell me, how is that order serving your people?" The elder's face flushed, but he couldn't deny the truth of her words. "I'm not suggesting we abandon all structure," Willow continued, addressing the crowd again. "I'm suggesting we build better structure. Hierarchies based on wisdom and character, not just genetic lottery. Systems that value diversity as strength, not threat." "And who decides what better looks like?" a vampire representative asked. "You? The Alpha King? What makes your vision more valid than tradition?" It was a fair question, and Willow had been preparing for it. "Nothing," she admitted. "My vision isn't more valid than yours simply because I hold power, but I can tell you what I've learned from being at the bottom of the hierarchy and the top. Both positions teach you things the middle never can." She stepped forward, her enhanced sight revealing the truth of every being in the hall. From the bottom, I learned that our current system discards incredible potential. Wolves with gifts we desperately need, cast aside, because they don't fit narrow definitions of normal. From the top, I've learned that power without accountability becomes tyranny. Willow paused, letting that sink in. So I'm proposing something unprecedented. A council of voiceless representatives from every supernatural species, every territory, every level of the traditional hierarchy. Not to rule, but to ensure that no voice goes unheard, that no individual is discarded simply for being different. The hall erupted in discussion. Some voices were supportive, others skeptical, many confused. This kind of inclusive governance had never been attempted in the supernatural world. "It'll never work," Elder Reginald declared. "Too many voices, too many conflicts of interest. You'll have chaos." "Maybe," Willow agreed. "But I'd rather have messy democracy than elegant tyranny. And I'd rather have young wolves who grow up believing they have value than young wolves who die believing they don't." That hit home. Throughout the crowd, supernatural beings were nodding, remembering their own struggles with the rigid hierarchies of their youth. "There's something else," Jonah added, stepping forward to address the crowd. "Something we haven't told you yet." Willow felt a flutter of nervousness. They'd agreed to save this revelation for the end of her speech, but Jonah was improvising. 3 days ago, we received intelligence about the Shadow Council's plans, Jonah continued, his Alpha King authority commanding absolute attention. "They're not just opposing Willow's reforms, they're planning to eliminate everyone in this room." The hall fell silent. "Tonight," Jonah revealed grimly, "they're going to attack this summit, kill every leader present, and blame the massacre on genetic abominations who couldn't control their powers. They're planning to use our deaths to justify a purge that will set supernatural society back centuries." Panic rippled through the crowd, but Willow stepped forward with calm authority. "Which is why," she said clearly, "this summit was also a trap." Every eye in the hall fixed on her. "We knew they were coming. We've been preparing for weeks. This castle is warded by the most powerful witches in 3 territories. The grounds are patrolled by vampires, who volunteered to endure daylight to protect this gathering, and every entrance is monitored by Fae, whose glamour makes them invisible even to Shadow Council agents." Willow smiled, and for the first time, it carried the edge of a predator. "The Shadow Council has ruled through fear and manipulation for 5 centuries. Tonight, we end that." As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the castle. But instead of panic, the supernatural beings in the hall moved with coordinated precision. This wasn't chaos. This was preparation paying off. "Positions, everyone," Jonah commanded, his Alpha King voice cutting through the alarm sounds. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves tonight. We're fighting for the right to determine our own future." The battle for the supernatural world soul was about to begin. Willow took Jonah's hand, their combined power blazing like a beacon in the darkness gathering outside. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "no more children grow up believing they're worthless for being different." "Whatever happens," Jonah agreed, "the old world ends tonight." Through the castle windows, Willow's enhanced sight revealed the truth of what approached. Dozens of ancient supernatural beings, their power darkened by centuries of feeding on fear and control. The Shadow Council had come in force, expecting to find a gathering of naive idealists. Instead, they would find a united front of beings who'd finally decided to fight for something better. The last battle of the old age was about to become the first victory of the new one. And Willow Ashwood Shadowbane, the blind Omega who'd been told she was worthless, stood ready to prove that sometimes the most broken things, when given the chance to heal, become the strongest of all. 2 years later, Willow stood in the same courtyard where the Unity Summit had taken place, watching a group of young wolves play together without regard for rank or genetics. Among them was a blind pup who navigated by scent and sound, leading a game that sighted wolves couldn't master without his guidance. "No one's told him he's different yet," Jonah observed, joining her as he did every morning for their shared coffee ritual. And by the time anyone tries, Willow replied with satisfaction, he'll be strong enough to tell them it doesn't matter. The Shadow Council was gone, defeated that night 2 years ago by the combined might of species they'd spent centuries keeping divided. The new Council of Voices met monthly, its sessions sometimes chaotic but always inclusive. The supernatural world wasn't perfect. Change took time, but it was better. Any regrets? Jonah asked, the question that had become their daily check-in. Willow considered it seriously, as she always did. 2 years of queenship, of political battles and administrative headaches, and the constant pressure of being a symbol for change. Just one, she admitted. Jonah raised an eyebrow. I regret that my grandmother didn't live to see this, Willow said softly. She would have loved watching those pups play together. She did see it, Jonah replied gently. Maybe not with physical eyes, but she saw it in you. Every time you choose compassion over revenge, every time you build instead of destroy, every time you prove that being different is a gift instead of a curse, she sees it. Willow smiled, her hand moving instinctively to the slight swell of her belly where their first child was growing, a child who would grow up in a world where genetic differences were celebrated, not feared, where being born different meant being born special. I love you, she said to Jonah, the words carrying the same weight they had the first time she'd spoken them. I love you too, he replied. My queen, my mate, my partner in changing the world. As they watched the children play, Willow reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from broken, worthless Omega to queen of a new age, from believing she had no value to knowing she was exactly who the world needed her to be. Love had found her when she least expected it, just as her grandmother had promised. But more than that, she'd found herself, found her power, found her purpose. And in a world that had tried to tell her she was nothing, she'd proven that sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones who dare to be different. The blind Omega's awakening was complete. But her story, their story, was just beginning. And that's where we end Willow's incredible transformation from broken Omega to supernatural queen. If this story moved you, if Willow's journey from worthless outcast to the most powerful female in the supernatural world gave you chills, then please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stories like this take hours to craft, and your support means everything to a storyteller like me. Drop a comment below and tell me, which moment in Willow's journey hit you the hardest? Was it when she first touched the Moonstone Crown, when Jonah revealed he was the Alpha King, or when she finally stood up to the pack system that tried to destroy her? I read every single comment, and honestly, hearing how these stories impact you is what keeps me going. And here's the thing, Willow's story might be complete, but there are so many more supernatural romances waiting to be told. Next week, I'm bringing you the tale of a vampire prince who mistakes a human servant for nobility, and let me tell you, the identity reveal in that one will leave you absolutely speechless. So subscribe, hit that bell, and join our community of readers who believe that everyone deserves their happily ever after, especially those who've been told they're not worth loving. Because if Willow taught us anything, it's that sometimes the most broken among us are actually the strongest of all. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love to transform not just individuals but entire worlds. Thanks for joining Willow on her journey, and I'll see you in the next story.